There are remarkable similarities in the structure of pidgins and creoles which are found in different parts of the world. These similarities exist even when these pidgins are based on languages which are very different from each other. This has got linguists interested in the origins of pidgins and creoles. Many theories have been put forth regarding their origin. One of these theories, which is considered one of the earliest theories, claims that pidgins and creoles emerged among those people who were not capable of learning the standard languages with which these pidgins are associated. Another view which is associated with this idea is that European languages are better than other languages of the world and that many languages in the world speak primitive languages. By primitive languages, they mean languages which are deficient in certain ways. This idea of certain languages being deficient in certain ways is then linked with the idea that people who use these languages are themselves deficient, that is, inferior in certain ways, that is, intellectually, and therefore they are unable to learn more advanced languages. This theory has been rejected by a majority of linguists. What do you think about such a theory? Of course, it deserves to be rejected because it's largely racist. Other theories of the origin of pidgins and creoles are divided into three groups, depending on whether a pidgin arose from a variety of sources, that is, arose in different places. This group is called polygenesis, and then the second group is called monogenesis, which means all the pigeons emerged from a single source, and the third group is universal strategies, which claims that all the pigeons derived from universal strategies of language learning. Let's take a look at some of these theories. One of these theories, which is polygenetic, is the independent parallel development theory. According to this theory, pidgins and creoles developed independently from each other in different parts of the world at the same time. And any similarities that we find in the structure of these pidgins and creoles are because of the shared circumstances of their origin. Now, what is meant by the shared circumstances of their origin? One factor which makes these circumstances similar is the need for communication for the purposes of trade. European traders have been doing trade with Asian and African countries for a long time. When they reached these countries, they of course needed to communicate with the people they regularly did business with, but they spoke different languages. So out of this need for communication for trade purposes, a language emerged, or different languages emerged, which we call pidgins and creoles. Now, another factor which creates similarities among these languages is the shared superstrate language. In most of the cases, it is English, but not always. Before we go any further, let's discuss what we mean by a superstrate language. In linguistics, stratum or strate is a language which influences and is also influenced by another language. Of the two languages, the language which is superior and has more prestige is called the superstrate language, and the language which is considered inferior or has less prestige because it belongs to the people who are less powerful is called a substrate language. In case of pidgins, the European languages, in many cases English, were the superstrate languages. So often these pidgins and creoles share the same superstrate language, that is English, but in cases when the superstrate language was not English, for example, when it was Spanish or Dutch or French, even then these languages belong to the same group as English does, that is Indo-European language family. So there were still similarities in their structure. Then another reason which is given for the similarities in these pidgins and creoles is that the simplification process for any language is the same, which means that all the languages go through the same process for simplification, which includes use of simpler set of sounds, dropping of inflections. For example, people will not use s to indicate plurality, will not use ed to indicate past tense, etc. So all the languages, when they're undergoing a process of simplification, they follow these practices. Then there were shared social contexts. For example, if a pidgin originated as a result of communication between traders from different countries, the social context was the same in different places. Even later, when pigeons originated, or different pigeons arise as a result of a slave trade, or the African slaves who were used on sugar plantations in Caribbean, the social context remained very similar. For example, there was a need for communication between the slave masters and the slaves, and the need included very simple functions. For example, making a complaint, making a request, giving instructions, etc. So this need for communication was the same, and the social context was also the same. And then another reason which is considered most plausible is the shared substrate. In many cases, it was African, but in case of Pacific pigeons, it was again a common language which was found in this part of the world.